Welcome, Joel. Nice to see you again today. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. As usual, it's a great day and I'm happy to be here.
Great. So today we're talking about the baby vitamin D, and I'm
Yes.
very interested to learn more about that and actually how that differs from the adult version.
Well, that's the easiest thing to answer. Health Canada has very strict, and I mean very strict guidelines when it comes to certain vitamins and certain minerals for different age groups.
Hmm.
And for example, with vitamin D, for adults, the maximum dose you're allowed to recommend as a manufacturer is 1,000 IU or 25 micrograms a day.
Hmm.
And for young children, and that 1,000 micrograms basically, just so we're clear on this, is anyone who's 18 and up. Anyone who's 18 and up, no problem. Now the problem is if you give that to an infant or a toddler, the big concern is that they get vitamin D also from their formula, or if they're breastfeeding, they also get vitamin D from breast milk. So you don't want to give them an overload of vitamin D because at that age, if you overload vitamin D, it causes stress on the liver. And we don't want that. So
No.
when it comes to baby vitamin D dose, it's 10 micrograms or 400 IU a day.
Okay.
And that's a general rule set out by Health Canada.
Mhm.
Of course, if your doctor tells you, as happens, it's like, okay, your child, no, your child needs 800 IU, or your child needs 1,000. That's fine, no problem. I'll be honest, my son, this is actually his bottle. My son, who is 12, he's been on it since pretty much since we brought him home, and he's been doing 1,000 IU all the time. We have the baby D bottle here, and the reason we do very simply is that I ran out of the adult. I ran
Okay.
out of it, so I had no choice. Occasionally we run out of stuff, and he still needed it, so we brought this one home for him. But normally he does 1,000 IU,
Okay.
but that's him.
Mhm.
With other children, we tell people to stick by Health Canada's guidelines unless their practitioner tells them otherwise.
Okay. And so one dose of the baby vitamin D is 400?
Correct. And
Yeah.
with our product, a dose is just one drop.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so what the nice thing is, it's in a combination of safflower oil, sunflower oil, and olive oil.
Hmm.
So the nice thing is when you're talking one drop, it practically has no taste unless you're really, 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 really sensitive.
Hmm.
So most people just take a drop. Like my son, we just dropped it right in his mouth on his tongue. He didn't care. Nice and easy. Most people are like that. For some children, when they're nursing, what we suggest doing is just putting a drop actually on the breast,
Hmm.
right near the nipple, and they'll get it as they go through drinking. Or if you're doing it through a bottle, just on the nipple of the bottle, that works fine. For children who are a little older and are into solid food, for example, we say put it on a little piece of bread, even, or even a cracker. My son occasionally would just have it on an apple. If he was having an apple slice, we just drop a drop on that. It's all good, no problems there.
That's a great tip, actually, for some of the parents out there, for sure.
The nice thing is it's a really simple product. It's I know a lot of people like, oh, it's really complex. It isn't. It's a very simple product. We actually buy very high grade vitamin D concentrate. We
Hmm.
have it manufactured for us specifically. One of the biggest questions we always get asked is, what's the source? Is it GMO? Where
Hmm.
is it done? And how does that work? And I'll explain it really simply. Everyone, it doesn't matter what manufacturer you talk to, every manufacturer who does vitamin D buys it in a concentrate. The stuff we buy, for example, is 1,000,000 IU per ml. It's
Wow.
really concentrated, really concentrated.
Wow.
And in the market around the world, most of the product out there is either in soy oil or corn oil because it
Mhm.
comes in an oil. We actually have it manufactured for us specifically in sunflower oil. And the reason we do that is to make sure there's no chance of GMO, because there is no GMO safflower oil on the market. It doesn't exist. Whereby corn and soy, you just never know. So we just stay away from those completely. We Nothing to do with them. For the source of our vitamin D itself, we have two different forms of it. We have a vegan vitamin D and a regular vitamin D.
Mm-hmm.
The regular vitamin D comes from lanolin, which is basically when the environment, oxygen, etc., interacts with sheep's wool and actual, this is going to sound weird, the actual excretions from sheep onto the wool itself,
Okay.
it forms vitamin D.
Hmm.
It's basically vitamin D3 specifically, which is the non-vegan form, comes from commercially one of two sources. It either comes from fish oil, uh, particularly fish liver oil, like that's where the old thing our great
Cod
grandparents used to
liver?
do, cod
Yeah.
liver oil. That's why they took it. And I can tell you from personal experience, there's a reason people try to avoid taking it now. It's not even remotely pleasant. It isn't. I've tried it. I highly recommend against it. That's one way. The other way is to get it from, it's called lanolin. It's a
Mhm.
wax that forms on sheep's wool.
I had no idea about the sheep wool thing at
Yeah.
all.
Well, it's the preferred form, and the reason it's the preferred form is
Mhm.
it tends to be one that people don't have allergies to,
Okay.
and it's one that's not cruel to animals because the sheeps are being sheared anyways. It's just part of the process. So you're not ethically, it's good because you're not harming the sheep,
True.
and
That's
at the
true.
same time, you don't have to worry about allergens. So it's a win-win there. So that's the regular one. The other one we do is our vegan one, and the vegan source of the vitamin D is from mushrooms.
Oh.
Straight, simple, easy. It's completely vegan. Essentially, what happens is there's a farm in, I think it's upstate New York. And what they do is they take a very specific breed of the brown button mushrooms, the ones that when they get really huge are shiitake. They
Mhm.
take those and all they do is they expose it to a very specific wavelength of light. And
Oh,
by doing that, it instantly produces vitamin D.
that's fascinating,
Oh yeah,
actually.
it's really cool. I've read they've published about 4 or 5 scientific papers on how to do it because they had to practice to figure out which exact species of mushrooms and then exactly what wavelength of light and the duration of the light and the temperature. And if you do it just one of the variables wrong,
Oh.
nothing. But you do it right, and poof, you get tons of vitamin D.
Very interesting. So is the child, the children's, the baby's version actually, is that like vegan or is that?
We have both. We have
Oh, you
both. We do
have.
vegan and non-vegan.
Okay.
The reason we do is some people prefer one to the other.
Mhm.
Personally, in our house, we only use the vegan one. Is there's a little bit of controversy out there, and I guess I should go through this.
Mm.
About probably about 10, 12 years ago, one of the big manufacturers out there came out and say, and they were heavily into vitamin D3, which is the non-vegan one.
Mhm.
And they came out and said, you have to take vitamin D3 because D2, which is the vegan one,
Mhm.
just doesn't work in your body the same way. It's just not as good. Doesn't work. Okay, fine. So researchers went out and they started to try and prove and see this, etc. And in the meantime, consumers and health food stores just kept perpetuating perpetuating that. But
Mhm.
here's the skinny on it. There have been a lot of clinical trials on it. What they found is both forms of vitamin D increase your body's own vitamin D because your body produces a different form of vitamin D. It's not D2, it's not D3, it's
Mhm.
neither of them. But both of them get converted into the one your body can use.
Okay.
And I remember a client of ours, maybe even just 2 weeks ago, said, yeah, but vitamin D3, the non-vegan one, it converts much faster and it lasts longer in your body and you get more of it.
Hmm.
Mm.
No.
The science out there is for every one paper that says that D3 is better, I can show you a paper that says D2 is better. Both of them from very reputable places. The fun thing is, the ones that have actually been the larger scale studies that have been longer term show there is a difference. No question. It's sub 1%. It is
Oh, wow.
essentially statistically a wash. It means nothing. And it's one of those things where the myth has perpetuated despite the science not really supporting the myth.
Yeah, there's so many things out there like that it's just perpetuated and perpetuated. And
Oh,
anyway,
yeah. Especially in our industry, there's
yeah.
tons of them.
Mhm.
But the good news is both of them work. And we say to our clients all the time, it's a personal choice. If you want to go vegan, go the vegan one. If you don't want to go vegan, go the non-vegan one. We have some clients. We actually have one client who buys both, and actually one day does one, the other day does the other. They're hedging their bets. We've been saying for a while. They laugh every time I say it, but that's what they do.
Mhm. Mm. And how I'm wondering about the infants. So how important is it to give babies, and what age actually are you allowed to start with the vitamin D?
Well, vitamin D is an interesting one.
Hmm.
Health Canada has recognized the value of vitamin D to everyone's life from
Hmm.
every life stage. The interesting thing is they don't recognize its benefit to the same holistic value that we do and that science does. Right now, they're only talking about its benefit for bone health. They're not talking immune health. They're not
Mm.
talking respiratory health. They're not even talking brain health or blood health. They're only talking bone health. And it's a narrow viewpoint, but even with that narrow viewpoint, Health Canada recommends that infants at birth start
Oh,
getting vitamin D.
very
Like
interesting.
hospitals are supposed to make sure, as part of your packet of things you have to bring when you're giving birth, that you bring vitamin D drops.
Wow, I had no idea.
It's been like that, I think, for about 14, 15 years.
Wow, okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
And they say from day one, keep going. Every pediatrician is
Hmm.
supposed to tell you that. At the same time, even OBGYNs are supposed to tell you that as well. It's everyone's singing from the same songbook on that one. That it's day one on. And the reason Health Canada does is specifically for the bone health. And to be honest, it is necessary, especially at that age. And with our diets changing the way they are, um, it seems every year there's a new fad thing,
Yeah.
and there's something that used to be great for us that's now not great for us.
Yes.
With
Yeah.
that, you want to make sure for the key nutrients that you actually get them, especially to children, especially because as adults, I'm not going to say I'm a saint here. I'm not going to put a halo over my head that I make the best decision every day, but at least I'm educated and it's my choice. If it's an infant or a toddler or even a 12-year-old like my son, it's not really their choice. It's our job to make sure they get, at the bare minimum, enough to keep
Mhm.
them healthy.
Absolutely.
With any luck, everyone's going much more than that, but at the bare minimum.
Yeah, absolutely. And so at what age can they convert to the 1000 IUs, the adult dose?
According to Health Canada or according to me?
According to Health Canada, it's 18, but in your experience.
Well, let me put it this way. In countries that, other than Canada, that are considered to be very, very at the forefront of nutrition.
Mhm.
I'm talking here the European countries. I'm not talking our southern neighbors because they're off the charts. I'm talking more along the European and
Mhm.
in especially in Southeast Asia.
Okay.
They normally do it in the low teens.
Okay. Okay.
So 12, 13, 14 in that range, depending on which
Mhm.
country you're talking about. The,
Yeah.
the, the, the big thing you have to understand with vitamin D also is it's safe to take. I'm not talking as an infant here. Please understand. I'm not talking infant. I'm not talking a
Mhm.
toddler. I'm
Mhm.
talking once you're past that toddler stage. So you're a child.
Yes.
It's safe to take it higher than recommended for a short period of time. And let me explain that by using the adult example. Um, Adults, as I say, it's 1,000 IU, according to Health Canada, a day. If you decide as an adult, and there's nothing wrong with you, if you're generally healthy, such as you are, if you go and take 4,000 a day, 5,000 a day for a prolonged period of time, it isn't going to hurt you. It
Mhm.
isn't. If you took 25,000 a day, that's going overboard. That's going overboard, and you're going to do some damage.
Mm.
However, you have to understand they've done Safety studies on vitamin D. A key thing to note here, the safety studies are all done on vitamin D2, not D3.
Okay. Hmm.
All the safety is on D2. And if you have, for example, if you have a medical condition where, and there's some children like this, there's some adults like this, whereby you naturally do not absorb vitamin D very well,
Hmm.
what they do is they actually inject you with a massive dose. And when I say massive, I know someone who gets 200,000 IU, an adult.
Oh,
I
wow.
know someone who gets 200,000 IU I think it's every 4 months.
Wow.
And the reason is they want to flood the system,
Hmm.
make sure the system gets enough, and then slowly burns it up or uses it up. And they do the same thing, not to the same number, with children who have issues and also infants and toddlers that have issues, although it's much rarer. It is much rarer. So if you're going to take a larger dose, the takeaway from all that, I know I'm lengthy in my explanation, but the take home from that is if you're going to do a larger dose, be sensible about it. Go a little bit more, not a huge amount more, and you might want to do it short term, not long term.
Okay. That makes sense. Yes. And with that, actually, are you mentioned that there are some people that can't absorb it, but is there, to the contrary, are there any like contraindications for the vitamin D, or is there anything that any cautions? For,
The only contraindications are if
mm,
you're allergic or if you have issues with one of the other oils that's in it. For example, olive oil, safflower, sunflower. There are going to be, as with any natural product out there, or even food, there's going to be someone who's allergic to some one of
mm,
it. If
mhm.
you're allergic or intolerant to it, obviously, please don't take the product.
Okay.
If your child's allergic or intolerant, please don't. We don't want a negative reaction from something that's supposed to be healthy and help you.
Yeah.
Other than that, that's pretty much it. Again, you don't want to go overboard and go nuts. Unfortunately, in the age of COVID, something, or let me rephrase that, anything that has an immune component, there's some people who have gone wackadoodle nuts and just, okay, one drop is good, I'm going to take 60.
Mhm.
No, don't.
Yeah.
Your body can only use so much at a time anyways. There's no point in going more. If you're one of those people who has a difficulty or an actual enzymatic problem and can't absorb it properly,
Mhm.
that's for a doctor to fix with an injection, not with oral products, mine or anyone else's,
Yeah.
because it just won't work. You in actuality, you're wasting your money. You want that to be handled by a doctor. So saying if you think you have an issue absorbing, taking a massive dose via oral, you're wasting your money and you could actually hurt yourself. Go to a doctor. Let a doctor take care of it properly. That's what they're there for.
Mm, it's unfortunate some people think like more is better, that mentality, but that's definitely not always the case, right?
That's actually rarely the case, and I'm always reminded of my grandfather who had a ton of wisdom, and he used to say, anytime you think you want to take much more of something because it's healthy, a glass of water is really healthy. 50 liters of water, you'll drown in your own body.
Yes, it is true. Uh, anything else that you find that would be very important for the consumer for to know about the vitamin D?
Just that it's the beauty of the product is in its simplicity. In
Mm.
its oh god, in its simplicity. That's hard to say today for some reason. We tried to make the product as simple and as easy and as basic as possible. The only concerns anyone's ever had with it, and we've had this product on the market, it's got to be 20 years. It has to be. It might even be longer than that. Is occasionally some people, for some reason, decide to put it in the fridge. I still to this day do not understand why. If you do, it gets hard to dose because
Mm,
the drops just don't want to come out.
mhm.
So if that happens, we recommend taking the bottle, holding it in your hand like this, really tight fist for about a minute. And then what'll happen is you'll warm it up enough that it'll start flowing through the dropper. That's pretty much the only negative we've had since the day we launched on the product.
Awesome. And so where can people find your products out there? Where can they find that baby vitamin D?
The baby D, that's a really easy one. We're in, I'd say, probably 90% of the health food stores in the country. We're also in all the Loblaws style stores where it's Superstore, Fortino's,
Who knows? Mm-hmm.
and so on and so on and so on. Loblaws, your independent grocer. I don't even remember all the ones they have anymore. They have too many.
Well, it's
Uh,
nice.
and on top of that, it's also available on Amazon and on our website. It's on both. And our website's purelynaturalstore.com, spelled with an E. So it's P-U-R-E-L-E, naturalstore.com.
Excellent. So any final words for our listeners?
Only thing I would say is if anyone has any questions on this, they want more information, please don't hesitate to call us. I'll even give our phone number right now. It's
Yeah.
area code 705-733-2117, and you can go right to extension 8, and someone will be there to help you and answer any questions you might have on this or any of our other products. Happy to help.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Joel, for coming and sharing that wisdom with us today.
As always, it's my pleasure. This is fun.